Hey guys, it's Scan Warriors doing our commentary on Agito Part 1, episodes 1 through 20.
Yep. Kamen Rider Agito is technically the sort of sequel to Kamen Rider Kuga. That's how it was originally written and produced. But along the way, someone was like, if the Grongi came back, then wouldn't that sort of made Godai's fights pointless? And that'd be, for returning viewers, that'd kind of be like a sour taste. Like, Godai didn't really accomplish anything if the Grongi are still back. So while there are references to Kuga in the beginning, like mentioning number 4 and that incident and such, and the very fact that there is a man-made rider in this series directly based on Kuga, you can sort of take it as a sequel if you want to, but the story is self-contained enough that if you don't want to see it as a sequel and you don't want to see it in that light, then you don't have to.
Yeah. So it's like you said, it's pretty much it's a direct sequel, just not it's a different fight in the timeline.
It's a direct sequel, but not a direct sequel.
Yes.
It's only a direct sequel if you want it to be.
No, I will not let people deny the fact that this is a direct sequel because of the conversations they have about the stuff that happened before.
Yeah, but they dropped that right away.
Yeah, but it's still a direct sequel. Anyway, so our story starts off with the police trying out their new man-made rider, Kamen Rider G3.
Well, he's technically not called a Kamen Rider. He's just called the G3.
Nobody's really called a Kamen Rider until later.
There's
there's lots of series where people are like, "What's a Kamen Rider?" And then it's the best.
Kamen Rider Decade.
Yeah. So anyway, we have our
the first of our 3 main characters.
Yeah, the first of our 3 main characters, and it is Officer Hikawa. I don't know
his full name.
I don't know his full name.
I don't remember his full name either. It's whatever. They always call him Hikawa. He's I don't know how
he's our resident policeman of the show.
Yeah, but he is not Ichijo.
Yeah,
like he's capable, but he's not Ichijo.
Yeah, he's sort of like a young, unaccomplished Ichijo, kind of.
Yeah, it's sort of like this is probably what Ichijo was like when he was starting out. Only Hikawa's not really starting out. He's been a cop for a while, at least a while.
I wouldn't say that long because when past events happen where with the Akatsuki Go, he's kind of new. He's at that level where he's still like new Kohai-kun level Hikawa.
Oh, little babu Hikawa.
And it's only after that incident that he's promoted, and then I feel like he's kind of got that accelerated promotion thing prior to the series starting.
Yeah, I could kind of see that.
But anyway, they introduce Hikawa in the G3 suit, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, we got this awesome robot that can fight Grongi." And then people are like, "Yeah, but it's like
unidentified life forms, not Grongi."
Whatever. They go, yeah. It's a good thing. It's like too bad all the unidentified life forms are already gone now. otherwise, this would have been a great investment.
Oh yeah, I actually had forgotten that they were like sort of shitting on like the entire project just because like all of them had been gone for like an entire because this takes place a year after Kuga, so it's like we haven't seen an unidentified life form in a year. So what's the point of this G3 thing?
But then again, they keep it around anyway. just in case.
You just gotta have it in the pocket.
Yeah, just in case.
They figured out that they're in a pretty shit universe where bad things happen.
Oh man!
Speaking of bad things happen, monsters sure do show up
again.
And one of the first things they do is they murder a little boy, young schoolboy, right?
Yes, young middle school boy.
Yep, they pull him into a tree and just shove him inside.
Yeah,
But remember, that doesn't necessarily mean it was a monster. It could have been some kind of human trick.
No. It's not. The thing with the boy is that he's just I think he's just hanging in the tree.
No, he was inside the tree. Because remember, Hojo.
No, it's Hojo does it when the dad gets murdered.
No. He says it when the son gets murdered. No, it's when
the dad gets murdered. I swear to God, it's when they're at the murder scene for the dad Yeah,
I'd have to go back and rewatch it. That was a while ago.
Yeah, they don't actually show the murders, like the police at the scene where the boy was. They show it's at the dad. But anyway. Then we get our introduction for our other secondary rider, Ryo, aka Gills, and he's apparently top tier Olympic level swimmer.
We don't know about Olympic level, but he is a top tier swimmer. He's the ace of the swim team. Definitely rising star in the swim world. I don't know how swim works. How does sports work?
It's whatever. I don't know. I don't know why you're asking me. But anyway, he's hanging out underwater, practicing off hours, and then his coach comes to him and they have that master student relationship conversation, and then we get the introduction of our main rider, Sugami Shoichi, aka Agito.
Oh, we don't know he's Agito just yet.
I'm pretty sure anybody who's seen a Tokusatsu series can figure it out. They'll figure out who Agito is as soon as he walks onto the screen.
I don't know. Gills almost figured it out as soon as he walked on screen. Because there's this scene in the beginning where they're walking. Ryo
is walking out away from the school, and Shoichi is walking into the. No, my bad. It's backwards. Shoichi is walking away from the school, and Ryo is walking into the school, and then Ryo gets this little
they pass right by each other.
Yeah.
And Ryo just turns around and is like, that's weird. And then he just sort of keeps going. He could sense the rider potential inside of Sugami.
So then we get, or after they introduce our three heroes, we get the first actual on-screen murder, which, or the first actual on-screen presence of a monster, which the first set of monsters is a bunch of tigers.
Cheetahs.
Yeah. They show up.
Or they're leopards. Or are they cheetahs?
It doesn't matter. They show up, and they do this weird little thing with their hands where they hold one hand kind of over their heart-ish, and that,
it's sort of like a prayer. It doesn't really matter what it is.
They're doing, like, the Pledge of Allegiance. And then the other hand comes up with their index and middle finger pointed out, and then they swipe it over their pledging hand, and then they move it down an inch, and then swipe it again, and then they do their murder. And with these particular guys, it's grabbing people and then shoving them inside of trees.
But remember, that doesn't necessarily mean a monster attack.
Yes.
Could have been some kind of trick. Exact words from Ace Detective Hojo, who is our secondary cop character, who's a big rival to Hikawa, and he's very much involved in Hikawa's character arcs and development.
Yes,
and
the only justification to his claim that it's not a monster is the fact that monsters haven't been around for like a year or something like that.
Yeah, and he really loves talking shit to Hikawa just because Hikawa is the user or the equipper of the G3 unit.
Yeah, he's really
Super salty.
He's really super salty because he was the number one candidate for G3 when they were trying to figure out who was going to use it, and then Hikawa got picked over him.
Yep, and we find out sort of kind of why. So, you want to talk about that now, or do you want to talk about that when we actually like?
I'll talk about it now because I don't remember exactly when we interject it. When we're talking about these things, because Hikawa is the hero of the Akatsuki Go incident that we find out about a little bit later. And he, because he's the hero, he got like a free pass to be one of the candidates to be G3, and then ultimately Ozawa, who is the designer of G3, picked him because of his good character traits.
He was cute. He was kawaii.
Yeah, that's what she says, but it's not it's not the actual reason why.
No, it's the actual reason why. It's just not in the. It's just not. That's not the context. Isn't what you think it would be when a woman would say, "This man is kawaii."
So they go do, or the wife of turns out that the murdered boy is the son of that man, and then they go talk to the wife, and later she gives a call to Hikawa saying she's got info that she wants to give him, and when he is en route to go get the information, she is also murdered the same way by being shoved into a tree. Hikawa shows up on the scene, finds her purse on the ground, picks up a photo, or rummages through her purse, finds a weird photo that's like in a baggie that somehow he figures out that that's the thing that she wanted to give him.
Well, it was kind of just an odd thing,
Yeah, and looks up, sees her shoved inside the tree, sees the monster, asks for the deployment of the G3 system, and then they send it out. And he gets in his rider suit, fights the monster in what is ultimately a losing battle. The monster beats him up enough to where the G3 system is at its limit, and then we get Agito showing up on the scene.
Yep, Agito just shows up out of nowhere in a blinding halo of light.
Yes.
Our messenger of God.
And then he fights the monster, does a sick rider kick, and then the monster slides back 10 feet after he gets kicked, and then he blows up. And
as one does.
Yes.
So, this first episode, I like the first episode a lot, mostly because it really gets us. It introduces the characters and kind of
it's like
of a
here's the people
way.
we're going to watch, and then this is the reason why you're going to watch it.
Yes, exactly. Also, good fun thing, the budget much higher than it was in Kuga.
Yes,
much higher. The special effects are much better done. I'm not as sold on the fight choreography, but that's mainly because right now Agito is sort of in a trance as he's fighting, so he doesn't really have a lot of personality as he's fighting. He's just on autopilot, so it's kind of okay, whatever. The monster designs are much more elaborate, and they're in Kuga. A lot of the beginning monsters were spandex with animal parts slapped on the face and hands and whatever for the most part, and
these monster designs are one step up, where they're the animal spandex with clothing or pasted on top of them.
Mm-hmm. They have cool designs. Unfortunately, excuse me, they're not as engaging as monsters as they were as in Kuga, because we don't know anything about them, and they just appeared and they're just doing shit. We have no idea what they're after. The only clue we have is that also in this episode they introduced like this big puzzle box with a whole bunch of combination locks on it.
Yeah.
From ancient Aztecia, obviously, just like before.
I would actually say it predates that.
Ancient ancient Japanese Mesopotamia. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Perfect. Understood. So this ancient Japanese Mesopotamian box washes up on a beach. That's probably the first thing we see. That is the first thing we see.
Yeah, that actually is the first thing we see. It's just the least notable.
No, it's definitely notable later from what happens with that box.
Yes.
Yeah, the only thing we know is that the cheetahs appear in the lab, that they have the box
this is the second episode now. Second episode, partway through it, when the scientists are trying to decipher or trying to crack open the locks, we get the introduction of 2 additional cheetahs that are shoving people inside trees. And then they put their hands on the box and say, "Let's speed this bitch up."
Yeah, for whatever reason, they want humanity to open up the box.
Yes.
Which now that I know about things later on, that becomes much more I understand why they did that now. Yeah. I understand exactly what's going on.
Do you think if before you knew what was going on with the box, you would have preferred if they had dragged out like the actual opening of the box across?
God, fuck no! They open it by like what, episode 4, 5?
4 or 5, yeah.
They opened. All right, this box. In almost any other show, this box would have been a fucking half of the show mystery. Or like near the season finale, like, oh, we finally opened this box. No, we opened that bit. We cracked that shit open like episode 5.
Yeah. But anyway, we get Hikawa continuing the investigation of the murders of people being shoved inside trees, which ultimately leads him to finding or investigating another set of people who are being shoved inside trees, and that's when they start going like, it seems that once the first person is attacked, it's like the next set of people to be attacked are family members. And so they're staking out the family of this next victim, and lo and behold, the cheetahs show up again, or at least one of them does. Hikawa jumps back into the G3 system to fight the monsters again, which is as soon as he starts fighting, turns out to be another losing battle because the third one jumps in. And
the G3's henshin quote-unquote sequence is amusing because it's him just standing stock still as Ozawa and their other little bridge bunny Kohai-kun, we forget his name, put on the G3 armor onto him. So he doesn't transform with magic like a normal rider. No, he has to he has to have it equipped onto him because he's a normal dude with science, with the powers of science.
Yes, and while Hikawa's investigation is going on prior to him fighting the monsters, we get introduced to the mystery of or we get introduced to the concept of people having psychic powers via the professor that Shoichi lives with via like one of his students, talking about the idea of people having powers. And then after that super gets dismissed, we find out that the professor's niece, Mana, does have those powers as they're testing the other guy.
And coincidentally testing Shoichi-kun.
Well, Shoichi just showed up and he's like, oh yeah, I'll do the test too, even though they're not actually testing him. And
yeah, but he could...
Turns out that he doesn't have those kind of psychic powers either.
No, he just has Kamen Rider powers.
Yes.
IMO better.
And then once the students leave, Shoichi goes to tending his garden, and then as he's tending his garden, he picks up the signal of the cheetahs attacking people, and then he's like goes into his trance and runs off. And also at the same time, which you're probably going to be hearing a lot of because we're talking about 3 stories going in parallel, except for those times where they give us breaks and only give us 2. We get Ryo at his swim meet, who has a sort of rider-induced seizure in the middle of a swim meet, and then he gets
nearly drowns.
Nearly drowns, has to get saved by somebody, and then he gets taken to the hospital. Because apparently when monsters attack people, they send off psychic waves that Ryo and Shoichi Shoichi both pick up when they happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, because there are 3 different main characters who are main characters, tritagonists here, we're going to be fucking up a lot. We're going to be getting balls deep into one story and be like, oh yeah, by the way, while this was going on, Ryo was all fucking off doing this.
Yeah, so Shoichi shows up to the scene of Hikawa fighting the 2 cheetah men, and then he summons his belt, and he gets his crotch halo.
His shining crotch halo of light, and
then he turns into his Agito form. Starts.
So while we're on the subject here, you can also still see like flashes of how this was supposed to be a Kuga sequel, because Shoichi, his belt also just appears like it does from his on his waist, like it did with Godai, like it would materialize from his body. And then if you look at the design of Agito, it looks very much like the ultimate form of Kuga, with the black and the gold. But Agito has his own forms and abilities, and they're one of them is very similar. It's a blue form that uses a polearm type weapon. Which I think he busts out in this episode, right?
Yes, because he commences to fight the cheetahs, beats both of them up, kind of, and then drags one off to another location. Fights that one. Fights that one.
While Hikawa fights the other one.
And
they both finish off their respective opponents.
Which is the best. Because unlike Kuga, which took literally the entire series for a non-Kuga defeat, this one happens in episode 2, and it makes me super happy.
Yeah, it just shows that human engineering can compete with monster attacks. It's an uphill battle. But unfortunately for Hikawa, Agito is still kind of in trance berserker mode. So when he sees Hikawa, he doesn't recognize him as an ally. He just sees that he looks
different. He's not. He doesn't look human.
Exactly. So he just starts.
He starts beating him up, and eventually he beats him up enough to where Hikawa has to take off the suit. And then as soon as his faceplate comes off, that's when Tranche Shoichi realizes that he's human, and then he just kind of fucks off.
Yeah, this is a downside I have with the show. Like, Agito's forms, like, he has three forms right now, and that it would be his base form called ground form, his staff form called storm form, and then he has a form with a sword called flame form. And they don't really get a lot of fanfare. He just busts them out, like, which is, again, you're gonna hear me comparing this show to a lot to Kuga. And Kuga, him getting a new form was a big deal. He needed that form, and it had drastic new powers. But here, they just kind of whatever. Like, storm form can kind of make a whirlwind, and then flame form can kind of have a fire sword. But that's about it. They don't really have any unique combat capabilities like Kuga's dragon form that could jump really high, but it was physically weaker, or Titan form, which could only move at a slow walk, but could tank hits like no tomorrow, and that kind of thing. Agito's forms are kind of boring to me, kind of meh.
None of them have any utility other than the fact that they have a specific weapon, which just sometimes works, sometimes don't work against monsters.
Yeah, it's not even like a rock, paper, scissors type deal where like a monster will have a weapon and he needs to counter that weapon or whatever. He'll just, at random, like, I'm going to use spear form this time or storm form this time, and he'll just change forms and he'll just use that. Like it doesn't have a lot of logic to it, I would say. Like there's sometimes there is, like when he uses the spear against the sword wielder.
It's whatever though. Then we get the episode, or after they defeat the cheetah men, then we get the episode with the armadillos, which is
dragging people underground.
Yes,
and around this time we haven't talked about Shoichi that much yet. Like the reason he's living with this university professor and like his deal. Shoichi has amnesia, and the sensei took
Mana-chan's uncle is a teacher at a university, and for some reason after let's start from the beginning. Shoichi is found on the shore of a beach, and they bring him to the hospital, and then one day he just wakes up at the hospital when the weather was nice, and
I still don't know what that means, but I will.
But he has amnesia, and when somehow he meets the professor, and the professor decides to let him stay at his house, and so Shoichi just hangs out all day doing all the
housework.
All the housework, yeah.
He cooks, he cleans, he tends to his garden.
Yes.
And seemingly without any sort of formal training, he's a god tier chef. He can just make food out of whatever.
Yes.
Months of cabbage and daikon.
I can't. I wish I could tell you the reason why he makes such big vegetables, but I can't.
So there's a reason his daikons are big enough that you could bludgeon people to death with them.
Yes. So
he's a pretty carefree dude.
Yeah. The armadillo monsters show up. They drag people underground. Hikawa starts his investigation, which ultimately leads him to one of the murder victims was a guy who had a bottle with a coin in it, and the coin could not have possibly gotten into that bottle
without the use of Chonoryoku.
Yes, so he makes the hypothesis that maybe the people being attacked might have special powers. And then we have Shoichi kind of figuring out that he's going into trances, and that then he's starting to have like flashes of like what he's done in those trances. And he's like, oh, I'm a Kamen Rider, oh my god. Except he's not saying he's a Kamen Rider. Mana's figuring out that something's going on with him as he goes into goes into trances or like runs off or something like that. Follows him to the park where he gets into a fight with the armadillo monster, and she sees him transform. Fights, doesn't actually beat the armadillos because he's too weak. And then we get the next episode where Hikawa's talking about people with special powers. They're investigating they're continuing to go like, oh, this person's family are these people, let's go protect them. Hojo's giving shit to Hikawa. Rio reveals to his swimming instructor that he's got special powers, and then when he goes back to talk to his swimming instructor, his teammates give him a bunch of hard shit, and when he turns tail to run away,
he doesn't run away, he just leaves. He's not running away. They force him to leave, so he does.
And whatever. And then his teammates go to his sensei and go, hey, why do we have to do that? That was kind of uncool. What's going on? Just let us know. And then we get where the camera pulls back and Rio's listening to them talk to him. And he's like, oh no, teachers betrayed me. Runs away. That's when he runs away.
That's when he runs away, yes.
Yes. Shoichi... eventually, Shoichi gets a flash of the armadillo monsters attacking again. Goes to fight them. Hikawa's there because they've been staking out the families. And they do another kind of team up of fighting the monsters separately. Mana-chan decides that she's okay with Shoichi fighting monsters because it's just the kind of person he is.
Super stand-up dude.
Yes. And then we get Hikawa beats another one of the armadillos using his grenade launcher. And this time, Shoichi wins the fight by just rider kicking harder.
Yeah, he just rider kicks harder. And the confidence in his pose after he lands, he just turns around and lets the explosion happen behind him. Because remember, cool guys don't look at explosions. Obviously. Yeah.
So anyway, speeding things up, the next set of episodes has to deal with
the opening of the box.
The opening of the box and Rio and Rio's girlfriend who shows up. Rio's girlfriend shows up, tutor Mana, then turns out that she's the next target of the monsters, and when the protagonists go to protect her, or when Shoichi goes to protect her, she's about to be attacked by another snake, and then that's when Rio finally does his first henshin.
Oh man.
Yes.
His first henshin, where he summons his stand, Gills.
And then he trades. Then he basically, the way the camera is shot is that he trades out with Gills, and then Gills fights the snake monster. Meanwhile, at the lab, when they opened up the box, they found a DNA model, and then they're like, "Oh, let's make it." And then they make it. Nothing happens, and then later that night, when the professor shows up to do stuff at night,
the lead researcher,
or the lead researcher does to do stuff at night, she's like, what's going on inside the lab? And then
because she hears the sound of glass breaking.
Yes, and then she finds a little baby sitting inside the glass case, falls asleep, wakes up.
Oh no, she doesn't just fall asleep. A giant bright light happens and she gets knocked out.
Yes, and then when she wakes up, baby's not in the glass anymore, leaving burning footprints with a symbol on the ground.
Obviously, they've just given birth to Satan.
Yes, and then when her after that, that happens before they fight the monsters. They fight the monsters, and then one of the monsters runs away. Finds little child Satan watching the professor
stalking
the professor, who is basically kind of like his maternal figure at that point. Gives him the look of like, we're being beat up by Agitos, and then the Satan's like, I don't care right now, and then she gets super butthurt, goes to attack the lead researcher. And then Satan goes, "You attacked my mom? How dare you?" And then
no. Satan doesn't say anything. He just lifts up his hand and eviscerates this monster effortlessly.
You mean atomizes this monster?
Disintegrates. Like fucking in Xenosaga.
Yeah, and then this is basically the reveal that little child Satan that came out of the box has something to do with the monsters.
Oh, extra something to do with the monsters.
And this part gets a little hazy for me.
Because a lot of things start happening at once, particularly in terms of like the plot.
Yes, it's a weird combination of a lot happening and at the same time a lot of nothing happening.
Yeah, it sort of starts going into like this what is it? This formulaic type deal.
They spend a couple of minutes per episode focusing on 2 out of the 3 characters, and then they have a monster attack, and it basically goes like that for up until now.
Yeah, it sort of basically goes something like that, but they start adding in like the plot threads, like they eventually start adding in like the continuing rivalry between Hikawa and Hojo, who's still super salty, and he starts going into more bureaucratic routes to get Hikawa out of the G3 unit so that he can perform inside of the suit. Which works at one point. Hikawa is removed from being in the G3 because
one of the fights with monsters leaves the G3 system needing serious repair.
Oh, that wasn't just one fight. That was when Agito whooped his ass.
No, it was after that because he helped with the armadillos.
Did he?
Yeah. After a particular fight, Hikawa needs the system they need the system seriously repaired. And then Hojo calls into question Hikawa's worth in using G3, and they listen to him because of just this recent thrashing, and then they put him in the suit.
Turns out to be a bad fucking idea.
It starts off okay, but then Hojo realizes quickly that he's in over his head, and then he kind of shits his pants and leaves.
Oh, he doesn't just leave. He takes off the suit and bitches out, runs away, doesn't even get a retreat order from his bridge bunnies. Like, he just runs the fuck away. What a bitch.
I thought we wanted to speed this up.
Oh, I wanted to focus on that.
Alright.
It's very important that I call him a bitch, at least twice in this instance.
Yes. So anyway, so Shoichi's doing his thing of, I'm amnesiac. I'm amnesiac, but I'm fighting monsters. And him and Taichi get this nice moment where when Ryo's girlfriend shows up, They both try super hard to get into her pants, and it's the best.
They both look at each other and they're like, nice.
Yeah!
Nice!
And it happens nearly every time a woman steps within the door of that building.
Yeah, basically. It's fairly amusing watching this 8-year-old child try to get his dick wet.
Yes. Rio is suffering from side effects of having gill powers, and eventually he gets picked up by a little child Satan.
Well, a teenage Satan.
No, he gets first picked up by child Satan, and then after child Satan heals him, while he's still knocked out, then he turns into teenage Satan. Then after that, he wakes up, sees teenage Stan talking to or looking at some water, turns into adult Stan, and then he runs down, goes to attack Stan, and then Stan's like, nope.
No, it's not just that he goes down to attack him. His gills powers go berserk, and he just starts attacking him.
Yes, and then adult Stan says, "Hey, you're not Agito, you're Gills. That's really weird, but deuces." And then he just kind of nopes the fuck out. And Rio is like, "Man, when I saw that guy, it's like every cell in my body was saying there was basically shitting its pants, and I just had to kill him." And then that's over.
Yeah, because what's really cool about Gills is rather than being like a magic rider, he's sort of like an organic rider. Because I want to talk about Gills a little bit because Gills is kind of fucking super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's sort of like that one.
He's actually officially still under the magic rider section.
Well, I mean, he's magic, but he's not magic. He's organic magic. You know how that works?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's different. You know, that's how magic works. It's different classifications. But when he does he have a belt?
Yes, he does. You and I just don't pay attention to it because he doesn't use it to transform.
Oh yeah, he just sort of summons his stand.
Yeah.
And he's got super cool. His finishing move is he does a flying axe kick with blades extended out of the back of his foot, and it's super cool because it's really unique and it's different from a lot of other rider kicks, which is just the flying kick.
Yeah. So Shoichi's now I'm going to talk about Shoichi. Shoichi's having his amnesiac shenanigans. This time, him and Mana come across a woman who is taken aback by seeing Shoichi, and then they notice this, and Mana talks to her and goes, "Hey, his name is Sugami Shoichi. Do you know who he is?" And it's like, "No." "Oh, well, if you remember anything, here's our number. Give us a call." Woman is talking to somebody on the phone and goes, "Yes, apparently he's going by the name Sugami Shoichi," which implies that she knows more than she's telling them. Arranges a meetup with Shoichi, and then when he goes to meet up with her, she doesn't show up because she's murdered.
Oh, she got hardcore murdered,
yes.
Strangled to death, but by wire,
and
not even garrote wire.
Yeah, and then Hikawa goes to investigate it. Evidence leads to Shoichi, but then Mana-chan reveals, while they have Shoichi in custody, Mana reveals to him that she's got psychic powers, and they use it to find the real culprit, which turns out to be Satan. Which I don't actually think it's Satan. I just think it's there are reasons why her power leader is Satan.
And Satan just confessed.
Yes. The only thing that he says to the police is that he confessed to the murder, and so Shoichi gets to go free. But eventually, Satan gets turned over to a mental hospital due to some lawyer shenanigans, and it gets implied that the lawyer shenanigans is due to the introduction, or due to this new character that gets introduced, who, when he walks into the building, and when he goes to sign into the guest log of the mental hospital, starts to write Sugami Shoichi, and then he just rips up the paper, gets a new one, and then writes a different name.
Yeah, it's very, very odd, because the reason that Sugami Shoichi has that name is because when they found him, he had a letter in his pocket, or whatever.
With Sugami Shoichi written on it.
With that name written on it.
Yes, but they didn't have the letter, so they just threw the name on the envelope onto him. And he goes to meet up with Satan, and they don't actually say it in the show, but it's actually that guy who used his lawyers to get Satan in the mental hospital.
Yeah, they definitely should have made that a bit more clear, but they totally didn't.
Then we get Hikawa. Just more. It's really easy to summarize everything in the first 20 episodes happening with Hikawa as he has shenanigans with Hojo, goes to investigate people with paranormal powers, and continues to fight for his position to operate the G3, except when he doesn't care. Now we are with then we get the introduction of what the fuck is the name of that person I hate so much?
Sakaki Aki.
Yeah, then we get this introduction of Sakaki Aki, who to infiltrate the Sugami household, which is, for all intents and purposes, that's what it is. Pretends to be a housekeeper, and eventually it's revealed that, or she says that she is Shoichi's girlfriend from the past. Rio is eventually led to her via investigating with his father's old notebook that has a bunch of people's names in it.
His dead father.
Yeah, his dead father's notebook.
This guy cannot catch a break.
Yes. Because prior to this, he didn't know his father was dead. He just, one day, like one episode, they call him, say his father's dead, and he's just another low blow for him.
Because he's got rider powers, he's quit school, everyone's shunning him.
Yes, his girlfriend doesn't want to be around him anymore, and then now his father's dead. It's like...
Being Gills is suffering.
Yeah, being Gills is the worst fate. It's almost as bad as being Zero-ness, which you'll find out when we get there. While he ends up following around, she's continuing to hang out with Shoichi, and then when she goes to walk away from Shoichi, then we get the meeting of Hikawa and Sakakiaki, and Hikawa goes, "Wait, I recognize you from somewhere." And then this is when she starts all of her shenanigans.
She starts all the problems.
Yes. Rio shows up, Rio walks into the scene when Hikawa is trying to ask her some questions, and then she goes, "If you stop this guy from following me, I'll tell you everything you want to know." And then she runs away, and then Rio punches Hikawa.
Oh, it's great.
Then a monster attacks her, and then she's ultimately saved by Shoichi and Rio, and that's when she finds out that Rio has rider powers, and Rio almost dies, and she takes him back to her apartment to get him to recuperate, heals up, and that's when Rio finds out that she's planning on using him for something.
Because she's on the phone talking with somebody,
Yes.
and says, he's not Agito, but maybe we can use him. Unfortunately, he's probably gonna die soon.
Yes.
And then that seriously fucks up Ryo. Yes. So he just like starts stumbling off, half dying.
Yes. Then we get Hojo starting the capture Agito plan so that they can catch Agito to experiment on him, so that they can find out how to use his powers to fight the unknown.
And he's being a super huge slime ball here, and he doesn't really get his what's it?
That's later.
His redemption till later.
Being a super slime ball about it. But ultimately, what comes out of it is, while Ryo's stumbling around town half dead, Sakaki Aki is trying to talk to him to convince him to use his powers, or that there's other people in her, or that she's a part of a group of other people, and for him to use his powers to help them. And then she gets attacked by an unknown while she's trying to do this, and Ryo transforms into Gills and starts fighting that monster. And then they initiate the capture Agito plan because Hojo thinks that Gills is Agito. Which is it's an acceptable misunderstanding if you're seeing this from the outside.
Because he already knows that Agito, because from watching him, Hojo knows that Agito can change forms, and Gills has not been a part of the main plot. His plot
hasn't been in the public's eye.
That and his plot has yet to like intersect with any of the other riders until now.
Yes. So they attack Gills thinking he's Agito, and when he's down on the ground twitching, they're like, "All right, let's bag and tag him."
Oh, he's not twitching. He's motionless.
Twitches and then is motionless. And they're like, let's bag and tag him, bring him back to base. Then he gets up and starts killing policeman. I don't think he actually kills anybody, actually.
Oh, he might. I don't know.
And then he's about to super hard murder Hojo with a punch to the face. And Hikawa shows up and saves him, fights Gills. Gills beats him up and then runs away.
No, he beats Gills up. Because that's why I keep making the joke that Gills loses to the G3. Because he beat Gills up that one time because he got fucking unloaded on with exploding poison gas bullets.
Okay. And then Ryo is
dying again.
And Sakaki Aki thinking that the police have killed Ryo runs away.
Yeah, she fucks off to like Canada or something.
Yes.
So, and in the meantime, she's given Shoichi the key to her apartment, and he takes that as like I'm supposed to wait here for her, and he... After
enough time of not having heard a word from her, he decides to just move into the apartment anyway.
Yeah, so after he does that, Ryo is basically dying again. You're going to hear that Ryo is dying a lot. Ryo starts dying. He goes to Aki's apartment to find her and talk to her again, and stumbles onto Shoichi. And Shoichi's like, "Oh, I'll take care of him because I'm a good dude."
Yeah, because that's what Shoichi would do.
He's a super nice guy. So he starts taking care of Ryo, and again, Ryo is like, his skin's molting and turning into bad CGI effects.
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Every once in a while, you see an old man hand cut into the camera.
Yeah.
So Ryo's trying to... It's this super funny thing where Ryo's trying... It's supposed to be a scene where he's holding up his hands looking at them, but clearly, it's a scene of him looking where he would be if he was holding up his hands, but there's clearly an old man reaching his hands from below the camera up to Ryo. It's the fucking best.
Yeah, but so Shoichi allows Ryo to rest inside of quote unquote his apartment right now as because he's a good dude and he's worried about this random guy who he kind of met once but kind of didn't meet once or something like that.
This is their first actual interaction in which both of them acknowledge each other.
Yeah, it's so he
No. But wait. Before this, there was the time that they met when Ryo's girlfriend, or when Shoichi was hanging out with Ryo's girlfriend, and then there was another instance where they met when Shoichi was with Sakaki.
Yeah, either way, he's like, yeah, I'm a good dude, whatever, I'm gonna let him rest here. And Gills basically repays him by almost strangling Shoichi the fuck out.
Yeah, he's getting voices in his head telling him to kill Agito. And so
to just kill people, just kill, period. Because remember, he almost attacks...
No, the first time it says Agito, then every time after that, it's try to murder other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh, I must have missed that part.
Yeah. And now we're getting the... Hojo is starting.
No! We haven't finished explaining the scene where Ryo's about to choke Shoichi the fuck out. Shoichi is writing a note like, "Hey, I made you this sandwich."
No. Let's back up further. Okay. So, Shoichi has started a part-time job at a bread/sandwich shop, and the owner gives him the keys and this nice, super recipe book that has, like, on top of recipes, has schematics on how the breads and sandwiches should look.
Yes, they have specific dimensions written on them.
Yes, and after a chance sighting with the police, the owner now decides that he's just going to give the shop to Shoichi and leave town. And so he gives him the recipe book and says, "Hey man, if I'm ever gone, take care of the business." And
lo and behold, that night he's literally choked out and set on fire.
No, I don't think he's actually going to skip town, because he just says that if anything happens to me, you're in charge of the shop.
Yeah. Lo and behold, that very night
he's super murdered.
He's extra murdered. Yes. In the exact same way that the monsters have been attacked the people. Yes. By setting them on fire with time stop lightning.
Yeah, and so Shoichi takes a break from starts running the shop by himself. Takes a break to bring a sandwich to his apartment for Ryo. Starts writing down a little note that says, like, "Hey man, here's a sandwich in case you're hungry." And while he's doing this, that's when Ryo starts getting the voice in his head to tell him to kill Agito. So then he starts crawling out of bed super slow, starts menacingly reaching for Shoichi's neck, and then Shoichi just gets up and leaves. Doesn't even notice Ryo there.
He did not detect his killing intent.
Yeah. Oh man.
He did not feel the murderous aura.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, we are getting Hikawa and the team are now having to work with this new senior member or investigator or police investigator at the behest of Hojo.
Yes, Hojo decided that maybe they need an unbiased, quote unquote, third party to help with the unknown investigation.
Yes. And the upper brass accept this just to get Hojo to stop his shit.
Don't forget the smug snake smirk in the middle of everything.
And then when they introduce this senior detective to Hikawa and the team, he walks in the door and then it's like
He introduces himself.
First, it's Ozawa looking at him, going, "Man, this is such fucking bullshit." Then we get Hikawa going, "Oh, it's gonna be nice working with you, sir," because he's a senior investigator right there.
Exactly.
and then we get a cut of Hojo looking at him with this weird snake ass smile smirk, and then he's like shaking his head like, "Yeah,
I'll be counting on you."
And then it cuts back to this guy's face, and he's got this look of concern, and me and Scott are like, this is the look he's giving because he's giving this look because Hojo is being a snake in front of everybody.
In front of literal everybody. It's like, can't you be a little bit more discreet? Apparently Hojo can't be discreet whatsoever. But this is basically sort of like Hojo's redemption arc.
This is the last time Hojo ever just bees a slime ball in front of everybody.
After this, he's sort of just a prick.
Yeah. We get the police investigating somebody having spontaneously caught on fire. They find a little sandwich bag and go, "Hey, if maybe the owners of this sandwich shop can tell us who this guy was." They come in, start asking who is this guy who bought these sandwiches, and he's like, "Oh, it's one of my regulars," and then that's how they find out who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And when senior investigator San walks into the building, we get a zoom in of the shop or the sandwich shop owner's face, and he goes, and then he walks into the back of the building.
Yep, and then that's when he gives Shoichi the recipe book, and as you can probably expect, fucking senior investigator totally murdered the shit out of this bakery owner because of completely biased reasons. And that's notable because this investigator had said on numerous occasions that he is searching for the unbiased, or searching for the truth with an unbiased eye.
Yes, and the entire time through these set of episodes, we get moments of Hojo and this guy sitting down, having conversations, and it's like Hojo has nothing but respect for this guy, which is a new side that he hasn't actually shown this entire show. And he's talking about how man, if it wasn't for the fact that I was such a scrub when I started out,
and you saved my life,
and because of your injury you were sent to the hospital and you couldn't protect your sister, so it's my fault, whatever. And they keep having this same conversation several times throughout the. And
what's notable about the investigator is he doesn't blame Hojo at all. He has he legit has no resentment for him.
Yeah. And then eventually they ultimately the monster is just kind of relegated to just something that's happening off to the side while they're having the police drama between Hikawa, Hojo, and this guy. And eventually Hojo goes to just sort of shit talk and throw some shade on Hikawa again. And when he goes, he sees the sandwich, and he looks at the sandwich and goes, "Oh, the sandwich, where'd you get it from?" And he goes, "Oh, from the shop, from the shop of the guy who died in the park, who was the extra murder that we didn't account for." And he goes, "What? Oh no, this sandwich is just like this." And then he turns on his detective mode and starts investigating all the evidence, doing something that we had never actually seen Hojo do investigation work up until this point, actually.
Well, the most they've done with the police investigation is just asking questions. They didn't really go into a lot of it like they did in Kuga.
Yeah, and then towards the end of the episode, when Hojo's victory in acquiring the G3 system is all but assured, he confronts his senpai, investigator San, and goes, "Hey man, it's like, hey man, I know we're about to get the G3. I'm about to get the G3 system, and all thanks to you. But I have to confront you on this.
No. I like to point out that he at first says, "Hey, you're always saying to go for the truth with an unbiased opinion, right?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he goes, "But what if that truth is extremely painful?" And he goes, "I would go for it anyway." And then that's when Hojo starts laying out the groundwork for his investigation. He's like, I figured out who this guy was. He's the guy who was engaged to your sister, and when she broke it off, he was really upset, and he probably killed her. And he was like, the prime suspect.
We don't know he killed. It's like he probably killed her. We don't know he killed her, and that
he was the prime suspect. But he walked, and then he vanished. And I know it was really, really hard on you, but. And when we found him in that bakery today by sheer happenstance, and he's suddenly dead, that doesn't look right. And he's just like, "Oh, but I have a perfect alibi. I was here." And he's like, "You used the remote control."
It's like, you may have had a perfect alibi, but here's how you did it. And then he does the this is how you did the impossible murder thing. And then the guy goes, "Oh man, you got me." And he goes, and then he poses the question to Hojo. He's like, what if saving you was the wrong thing to do? And then they have that moment of silence for a couple of seconds, and the guy goes, "What?" He goes, "But I don't regret what I did for a second. I think saving you was the right move, regardless of my actions. I let my bias get in the way." And then the Hojo proceeds to escort him as he goes to turn himself in.
And I do want to say, I do kind of wish, like, it does work in the sense that he wants to let his senpai turn himself in, preserve dignity, yada yada. But I also really wanted that just choked out, painful, "You're under arrest for the murder of the bakery owner guy." I really wanted Hojo to say that because it would have been just really, really solid. It would have just cemented it for me. And the only other notable thing that happens here in this set of episodes is Satan is talking to our friend not Shoichi, the guy who almost wrote down the name Shoichi.
Yeah.
And he's been basically letting him psychically connect to all of humanity, showing that they're all basically selfish creatures and all that, all that stuff, that basic humanity's garbage because they're all selfish and yada yada.
And after all's said and done, it gets to the point where it's like he's witnessed enough of humanity, and when Satan asks him, "So what's your decision?" Satan goes, not Shoichi goes, "I am going." It's like, regardless of what is like, even after everything you showed me, I'm still siding with humanity, and I ask that you give me a part of your devil seal. And then Satan goes, "Oh, so that's how it's going to be. Well, for taking the time to understand my side, here I'll just give you part of the devil seal as a gift." And we get the reveal that Sakaki is in fact still around, and that she ended up at a friend's apartment where she's just kind of standing by, and when a guy shows up to the apartment, meets up with this other girl who actually owns the apartment, and they're talking, and he goes, "What's going on?" And she goes, "Yeah, she has her powers now, and she asked me for this report, or for this to hack into the police database and get this report on the Capture Agito plan. So let's go talk to her." And when they're talking, we get a display of Sakaki's new awakened psychic powers as she uses her mind to lift paper and put it in her hands. And when they ask why she wants the Capture Agito plan, she goes, "Oh, I'm going to get revenge for the police who were part of the plan who finger quote killed Gills." And then she proceeds to walk out the door to start her plan to murder people.
Murder everyone.
Yes.
Just go on a murder spree.
Yeah.
So that's basically where we are now.
Not Shoichi uses part of the Devil Seal to unlock more of her potential.
Oh,
and then
I thought you had already explained that.
Oh, no, I didn't explain that. She kills 2 cops, starts attacking Hojo, and then that's where episode 20 ends.
Yeah, so basically we're learning more about the murder cult, I guess, that Aki's starting, or whatever, and whatever whatever fucking Satan has in store for not wanting humanity to have psychic powers.
Yes, because it is stated when not Shoichi wants the Devil Seal that he's going to. He said his intentions was to use it for the people that have psychic powers, which goes against what Satan wants because Satan doesn't want humans to have psychic powers. For whatever reason, I have a strong inkling that it's something similar to what happens in Shinsekai. If anyone's ever seen that anime and knows, but what happens when people get psychic power? When people first got psychic powers in that show, ha 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 ha. That's a very disturbing anime. Yes. Now that I thought about it, there's one more thing that we should talk about.
The opening?
No, my bad. 2 things now.
Yes, but no.
Through the show, we are getting the ongoing mystery of the murder of Mana-chan's father.
Oh, you're right. We did forget about more things. God fucking damn it.
It starts off with my father was murdered, and then we get eventually Mana is getting when she's around Shoichi, she's getting flashes via her psychic powers of Shoichi happening to have seen her murdered father on the ground. And then we get the reveal that Hojo's partner was working the case and still sometimes goes back to work the case sometimes.
Yep. After 2 years?
Yeah. And eventually this goes on to one of the times that Hikawa is hanging out with Hojo's partner. They go to the house, or they go to Mana-chan's old house, where Mana-chan is showing up, and they go, "What's she doing here?" And they find she talks about her father, and about the fact that, or they go, "Do you think your father had psychic powers too?" And she goes, "No, because I think this is the sort of thing that if we both had psychic powers, he would have told me to help me with mine," sort of situation. And then they notice that there's something off about the column in the middle of the house, or the support beam in the middle of the house, and they find inside they find a tape and an inside-out tennis ball. Eventually, when Hikawa ends up talking about the tape to his team, and Kohai-kun has whatchamacallit, what is it? Kohai-kun has a theory that maybe there's a code in the videotape that's not showing anything, and eventually figures out that the code is that it is actually a sound wave, and then they convert the code into an actual thing, which plays a videotape of somebody saying, was it "come here"?
Yeah, it was some weird, it's not, Satan talking.
But not Satan. It's basically saying nothing. It's just a weird message.
No, it did have discernible words, but it was like we just don't remember what it was. It was weird and spooky. It's like playing Dark Side of the Moon backwards.
Yeah. And then that's that.
Talk about the opening.
Yeah. Now we talk about the opening.
All right, the opening is super cool. I didn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. First time I heard it, I was like, this is kind of like too slow, and but then it starts getting into it, and I'm just like, yeah.
Ready to go, count 0. Kamen Rider Agito.
Yeah, it just has this really. It just has this really solid build up, and it also does a good job of like showing the past, the events prior to the series of our characters.
Inside the opening, they are showing clips of things that happened to our 3 protagonists prior to the start of the actual series, like flashes of what they were doing 2 years ago.
Well, 6 months. 6 months.
No,
Shoichi has only been an amnesiac for like 6 months or 9 months or something.
Well, he was in a coma before this too.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was.
He was?
Yeah.
Was he?
Yeah, they said they found him on a beach. He was in a coma, and then one day when the weather was nice, he got up.
Just one day when the weather was nice. You still won't tell me what that means. I'm gonna find out later. I guess whatever.
I'm not gonna tell you because when you get to the point where you know what that means, you'll figure it out instantly.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, it shows Hikawa getting swole for the G3, like going through like the hardcore test, and it shows him like climbing up on the Akatsuki Go boat. Because we didn't really explain.
First it shows him climbing up on the Akatsuki Go, and then we get the cut of him like sweating super hard with a bunch of fucking test equipment hooked up to him. And then we get
Gil's going through physical therapy.
Yeah, physical therapy, because apparently his powers awakened when he got into a car accident.
Yeah, he got hit by a truck while on his motorcycle.
Yeah, and we get all the cuts of Shoichi are him on the beach, washed up on the beach,
dead or not dead, but dead. But so the opening is really well put together. Like it wasn't like, it's not like my type of music. Like I definitely liked Kuga's song a bit more, but I like the tone of this song. It's solid. I enjoy it when it comes on. I sing along with it because I'm a fucking weeb, and all that good stuff. Shut the fuck up. And the show has a really nice presentation. Like, it's got a really simplistic look, and it's really clean.
Yeah.
It doesn't really have a lot of super crazy, flashy frills and bells and whistles and stuff. Like, it's still sort of like Kuga, where it's sort of like where the aesthetic is sort of like a simplistic, almost minimalist type deal. There's definitely like ornateness and what is it? Sort of. They've given more detail to everything, but without making it overly complicated. Particularly like not just the suit designs, but things like the backgrounds. The backgrounds are nice, simple settings. They're always like police stations or the Shoichi or the Shoichi household. Excuse me, an apartment. The only really problem I had with the apartment was like it was really cluttered. Like Aki's apartment.
Well, I mean that's
I get it because it is an apartment, but
it's an apartment with someone living in it.
Yeah, with like 2 people in it almost at all times. Like that time Rio was dying, and then that time Mana almost got murdered by Rio.
Yeah.
Yeah, we forgot about that.
That gets super sad back to her.
Oh man,
she walks into the apartment and then she's like,
"Oh, all right." So Rio is just standing there in the corner of the room, not behind anything. He's just in the corner, thinking, "I need to kill this tiny child, this 16-year-old, 17-year-old girl, or whatever."
The voice in his head is telling him to kill.
Yeah, and she's just looking around the room, conveniently missing the one corner where he's standing in.
She doesn't look at the one corner that she should have looked to see Rio about to murder him.
Or her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really bad because I'm like, when she turns around, she's gonna see him, and then she kind of like walks out the way because when she comes in, he's standing in the corner with the doorway in it. You know that type of deal. And she's looking around every corner of the room but that one. So I'm like, when she turns around, she's just gonna fucking see him. And then she, like, walks back through the doorway with her head completely turned in the opposite direction of that one corner.
It's this weird, like, it's this weird step back turn that she does that if it, like, when you see it, you'll, like, when you see it, or if you've seen it, you'll know that it's like it's this weird backstep turn that people don't even see. Like, people don't even do. It's like, it's weird.
It's super weird, and she just sandbags, creepo murdering Rio.
Oh man.
Hopefully our boy Rio gets I don't know, like some penicillin or something for that molten skin.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what they did set up here that I think they set it up here. Hikawa's upgrade.
No, they did not. They start talking about that after.
Oh yeah, that's right. So
we have seen a couple episodes past 20 by now, but we're not going to talk about them
for the sake of keeping this concise. Hey, look, it's only about half the time of our first try at this. When we make sure you don't fuck this up, for the love of God.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's so for now we're gonna be learning more about Shoichi and Gills and
Let's
Hikawa.
continue the mystery next time.